Hello and welcome. My name is Tabitha MacDonald. I'm an intuitive coach and a healer, and I am very excited to introduce you to Tantra. Many people don't really know what Tantra is and how to use it in their lives, and I think that they have a big misunderstanding of it. So, why am I going to talk about it this week? Because I had a really tantric experience this week. And when I was out for a walk tonight, I was asking my guides what I should talk about on this week's podcast. And they said Tantra. And I said, no. They said, yes. And so here I am. I'm going to talk to you about Tantra. Um, what is Tantra and why do we block it? And more importantly, how can we wake it up and use it for our advantage? So I would say about a year ago, I know it was over a year ago, I left my the last long-term relationship I have, and I completely decided to go within. I stopped dating. I'm not even interested. I decided to just go and do all of my inner work and focus on my business and my family and myself. And it was really interesting because I also turned off all of my tantric energy. And I was afraid that if it was on, I would make really bad decisions. So I just shut it off. But I didn't know I shut it off because once I shut it off, it was just off. And it's kind of like you don't know what you don't know when it's like not there. And I didn't realize the impact it was having on my manifesting. I kept going to people and saying, my manifester is broken. I'm not really sure where my magic went. And I realize now I had shut off the energy that I use to manifest. And I figured it out earlier this week because I was doing a breathwork session in my magic lamp, which is also known as the Roxiva light. And I was activating my sphincter. Now, if you don't know what your sphincter is, it's a muscle inside of your anus. And don't worry, I was activating it through breath. You get your mind out of the gutter. And as I was activating my sphincter, I felt all of this really fun energy flow into my body. And I was thinking, what is this crazy energy that is taking over my body right now? And it was almost addicting because I felt like this surge of power. And then all of a sudden, my creativity came back. I started having clarity of vision and purpose, and everything that I had been thinking was hard suddenly felt very easy. So, what did I do to shut it off, and how do you turn it back on? This is a good question, and we are going to talk about it because even when it came back on, I realized I was still terrified of it because it really activates my sexuality, and I don't have a partner. And okay, I'm really good at taking care of things on my own, so let's not go there. But there was something about it where it turned back on my desire to be with a partner. And I don't know if you've noticed, but the dating scene in 2024 is pretty horrendous. And I have no desire to be back out on the apps or inflicting that kind of workload. Man, the last time I did the apps, it was horrible. It was just so much work. So I went and talked to my spirit team, and they said, well, isn't that funny that you've been denying your sacred power? And isn't it also funny that you have also been denying something that you really actually want? And I just kind of poo-pooed them and said, oh, just, I don't want to deal with this right now. Anyways, so back to my story about tantric energy. What is it? How can we use it? And how do we know when we've lost it? So I'm going to do some reading because I think it's more important to get you some of the accurate information. I'm going to cover the science and the woo. So tantric energy is often misunderstood, with many assuming it's solely about sexuality. In truth, Tantra is about the flow of a life force energy through every aspect of our being: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. When this energy is free flowing, we experience vitality, creativity, deeper connection, and a heightened sense of purpose. But when it's blocked, it can lead to stagnation, disconnection, and even illness. And it's funny because now looking back over the past year, I can see that I was steeped in frustration. I was steeped in like just a lot of like anger and sadness and dense lack energy. And I just kept saying, why is my magic gone? Where did my manifester go? I miss her. She's freaking cool. Now I'm stuck with this like bossy bitch who tells me what to do all of the time and's got a to-do list that never completes and is never satisfied with anything that I do. That is my lackster as opposed to my manifester. So, what I want to talk to you about is what is Tantra at the core? It is the concept of prana, often referred to as life force energy. In modern science, this can be correlated with the nervous system, particularly the vagus nerve, which controls many bodily functions and regulates our emotions. Studies show that mindfulness, breathwork, and meditation, which are key components of tantric practices, activate the parasympathetic nervous system, helping the body shift into rest, repair, and connection mode. Research also points to the role of dopamine and oxytocin, two of my favorite hormones when I'm working with clients who have pain, because dopamine and oxytocin can pretty much heal the body. These chemicals are released during connection, intimacy, and even meditation. These hormones contribute to feelings of happiness, bonding, and emotional stability. Opening up tantric energy helps activate these neurochemical processes, creating harmony in the body and the mind. So it's really interesting because I have a very, very active meditation practice. I do a lot of breath work, and I also regulate my nervous system pretty much on a daily basis. I do a lot of body work, and it's interesting because like my coach about 2 weeks ago was saying that I should give up massage, and I literally was like, why? Why would I do that? And I love it. And it's because I get a lot of connection during massage. It's not just a one-way street. I get connection on the receiving end as well. It's all about touch and connection and like really having like a beautiful experience with someone else. And there's just like, I'm just not at a point in my life where I really want to let that go. I'm not really sure that there will ever be a point in my life where I want to let that go. But, I thought, why would you have to choose between coaching and massage when it's pretty much the same thing? It's just one has a label that you're a coach and one has a label that you're a massage therapist. They're not separate. You can ask any massage therapist. They're probably the frontline trauma coach for most people. So let's talk about the woo side because we talked a little bit about science and we talked about hormones, which create connection and those hormones, we need them. They're important. They feel good in our bodies and they make us feel good in our bodies. They make us feel good in the world. On the metaphysical level, we're going to talk a little bit about energy. And we're talking about like chakras and the root and sacral chakra. These energy centers are responsible for grounding us and fueling creativity, passion, and sexuality. When energy flows freely through these centers, it aligns with higher chakras, supporting a strong spiritual connection, inner peace, and a sense of purpose. One of the first things I do with people when they start having like their spiritual awakenings or they feel like their intuition is coming in a little too hot, gotta ground because grounding actually keeps you in your body and grounding actually makes your intuition more accurate and it makes it stronger. Most people don't know that because they are a little ungrounded when their intuition kind of like breaks its way into your consciousness. But it's really important that we ground. Now, if we have a wound, let's say like sexual trauma, we might not have an activated sacral chakra, or we might have an overactive sacral chakra. That can create a ton of dysregulation in our sexual energy. And this is why we really need to do some like sacred work on the sacral and the root chakra, because it's so important that we get that authority back over our sexuality and our urges and how we choose to use our bodies. Now, I'm not going to tell anybody how to use their bodies. Like, I'm not saying anything about that. That is a personal decision for everyone. But I do think if you're not enjoying your body in a sexual way, you're missing out on something. Many ancient wisdom traditions, such as Kundalini yoga, see tantric energy as Kundalini, a coiled serpent of potential that lies dormant at the base of the spine. Through practices like breathwork, meditation, and visualization, we can awaken this energy and allow it to rise through the chakras, promoting physical healing, mental clarity, emotional resilience, and spiritual enlightenment. I want to ask you, I want you to think back for a minute. Do you remember someone that you met that you just had like this animalistic attraction to? Like you just were like, oh my gosh, I would just tear their clothes off. And like you just had this like fire between you. That's them waking up your sacral chakra, activating your Kundalini energy. So sometimes, a lot of times, when you meet someone like that and they break your heart, we turn off that sacral center because we're afraid of having our heart broken again. Because we think that that energy created the pain in the heart. And it's not what created the pain in the heart. The heartbreak created the pain in the heart. Losing something that you loved or that you liked or that you had hope for. That's what created the pain in the heart, not your sacral chakra, not your Kundalini energy. And I think that's what happened with me was I associated that like Kundalini magic energy with heartbreak. And I decided I just didn't want to experience that again, pretty much ever, until maybe I was like 70. So I just shut it off because I blamed that energy for all of the heartbreak and bad decisions that I've made instead of really taking, responsibility for the choices that I've made in relationships. So, why do we block tantric energy? Blocking it is incredibly common. Like I just said, I'm usually very aware of this energy and I blocked it without even knowing it and without even realizing the cost that it had on my life. Oftentimes, we will block it because of conditioning. So we might be told somewhere along the line that sex is bad or our sexual energy is bad. And that people who have a high sex drive are, I forget the modern word. My kids always tell me what it is now. It's called like a boo. I don't know. I got it wrong. Don't judge me on that and don't quote me. But like, the old one from the 80s was that you're either, a slut or a man whore. So there is a lot of conditioning in society around sex. And right now, I mean, the last round of teenagers that I saw, they took it the opposite way, where they were like, no, I'm free with my body and I sleep with whoever I want. But they weren't actually enjoying it. And they were more disempowered than the other girls that I had grown up with in my own generation, because they weren't even like enjoying it. They were doing it like on a mission of, I don't even know what it was. But I digress. Trauma will block it, and societal norms that have taught us to repress our emotions, particularly around sexuality and creativity. Here are other reasons. Fear of vulnerability. This was probably one of the first things I had to work through. I remember when I read Brene Brown's book about vulnerability, and I was reading through it, and I'm like, would anyone want to be vulnerable? This is a horrible decision. Little did I know that vulnerability is also the key to your intuition and to your tantric magic. It requires us to open up both physically and emotionally. Fear of vulnerability can cause us to shut down emotionally, which stifles the flow of energy. Cultural shame. Many cultures impose shame around sexual expression, leading to deep-rooted energy blocks in the sacral chakra. This often manifests as guilt, low self-worth, and a lack of creativity. I would say that over the last 3 years, I have started prioritizing creativity like it was my job. Like I paint now, I do things like neurographica. I allow myself to decorate when I want to, because it's creativity, it's expression, it's art, and we need it to let our logical left brain rest and to have our right brain come online and like recharge the energy system. It is a key part of manifesting. Go for a walk with music, not an ebook, not like, the news. Just listen to music. And that is going to unlock your energy because it's going to help introduce that like flow of creative energy back into your body and to help shut down the logical thinking brain. Trauma is probably one of the biggest blocks to accessing our tantric energy. And I think that's really sad because as a sexual abuse survivor, I will say that that to me is the biggest crime against the person that was attacked because our tantric energy is sacred and it's beautiful. And for us to not feel safe to use that energy in our manifestations and our creative flow in life is actually an insult to the divine. If you are struggling, and I've been there, I had a lot of sexual trauma I had to work through. I totally get it. I would say do your work and get rid of it. And it's possible because I did it fast and now I help my clients do it fast. And I never like label myself as a sexual trauma coach, but I do attract a lot of people who have sexual trauma. And I think, we can kind of read each other's energy fields and they feel safe with me. And I love that because I can hold a really sacred, beautiful space for people who are processing through really big feelings and really big things in a really safe container. I think also, sometimes it's hard to really help someone if you haven't experienced their pain because you can kind of like stand on the outside of it. And when I say that, I also want to interject if you have done your work. Because if you haven't done your work and you're trying to help people with their pain, then you just kind of absorb it. And sometimes that can create some toxic codependency. But that's going to be a whole nother podcast episode. I just wanted to address the sexual trauma piece because I don't think we talk about it openly enough and the impact of the depth of what it takes from us, men and women. This is not just women. This is men and women. Let's talk about over-identification with the ego. When we focus too much on control, status, or rigid thinking, we disconnect from our deeper emotional and spiritual bodies. This imbalance creates energy blockages, particularly in the heart and throat chakra. And we just spent a whole weekend unlocking the throat chakra, which was so much fun. And man, we cleared some trauma out of the throat. Just people who didn't know how to connect their heart and their voice. And seeing the transformation in that to me was such a beautiful experience. And now I can see, funny enough that I'm saying this, why I needed to unlock my tantric energy prior to going into the workshop that we ran this weekend, because it really is this flow of energy that helps us connect in with our spiritual body, with our higher self, with who we really are outside of the density of being human. When we have an imbalance in our energy and we're like super rigid and we're like controlling and we're disconnected from our higher self, usually life sucks. Like we're in really unhealthy relationships, we don't have money, we don't feel fulfillment in our jobs. Maybe we feel very lonely. Like that one came up for me last week, and I was like, I'm not lonely. And then I thought, oh, am I? Maybe. Oh no, am I lonely? Oh crap, I might be. Um, let's talk about how it shows up in other areas. So like I have been working with the body for over 20 years, and I have seen this so much where people have chronic fatigue, they have reproductive issues, lower back pain, digestive problems. That's all signs in the body that you don't have a healthy flow of life force energy supporting and sustaining you. Emotionally, you might have a lot of repressed emotions, difficulty with intimacy, and mood swings, often to the point where you're just like blocking all of your feelings and shoving them so deep inside that it feels like if you actually tapped into them, they might erupt out of you like an uncontrollable volcano. Mental can be a lack of focus, creativity, and a rigid linear approach to problem solving. This can indicate no tantric energy. So when I'm working with people who say they have like ADD, ADHD, and all of these like problems focusing, I'm like, a sphincter says what? We need to get your sphincter back online because that is going to help you focus. I think that was a Phil and Ted quote. I hope it was. But anyways, I just wanted to throw that in there because I like saying it. As energy flows through the higher chakras, you feel a stronger connection to your intuition, your higher self, and the universe. I'm going to tell you that's where the magic is. When I feel the flow of universal energy coming through my body and connecting me to the earth, everything feels amazing. It feels like anything is possible and that like everything is unfolding for me. As soon as my ego takes back over and it's like worry and fear and doubt and the density of lack, I'm like lost in a sea of pain and like struggle. As soon as I'm connected back up, it's like this beautiful life force energy. And I feel like my body just naturally flows to exactly where I'm supposed to be when I'm supposed to be there. I want to talk about our Enneagram types and the tantric energy, but I actually think I might save that for another episode because I like to keep these kind of short. So ultimately, I want to ask you a question. Are you blocking your tantric energy? Can you resonate with anything that I said? And if you are, how is it serving you? But more importantly, what is it costing you? Now that you kind of have a different perspective on what you might be missing out on, what is it really costing you? What area of your life isn't in flow right now? And if you're married and you're not having hot, steamy sex with your spouse, why? Why are you not? Is it because you guys are busy? Is it because you're disconnected? Really think about it. Maybe you have little kids at home. I don't know. It's up to you to figure out. But when you like have a person that you can like activate all of that energy with, you become like this dynamic power couple that can really make some stuff happen in the world. I know that like some of the people that I've dated and when we had a really strong tantric connection, my manifesting was on fire. Like even though the relationship wasn't that great, the manifesting was amazing. Like I could think about money and it would just show up. So I want to ask you, like if you're in a relationship, if you are coupled and you're really blocked from each other, what would it take for you two to like reactivate the tantra between you? And if you are really blocked there, there's a lot of ways to reactivate it, but you have to want to. Like you really have to like decide that that's what you want. And if it's not, then why are you there? Really? Why? Really think about it. That's a serious question because we should have passion in our relationships. It's fun. Like it's what gets people through the crap times. Passion and play and creativity, like sovereign unity. That's what gets people through the hard times. And if you're with someone who's not willing to meet you there, why are you compromising? What are you getting out of it? Are you afraid of your own power or are you afraid of change? What is it? And I know that's a hard question because I really had to ask myself that when I've left relationships before. And I remember one relationship I was in, and there was zero tantric energy connection, like zero. And I picked it on purpose because I was afraid of my own sexual energy. I was afraid of it like controlling my decision making. Instead of like learning how to embody it and embrace it and how to use it like a superpower. So that's my question for you tonight. And I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode because I really didn't want to record it because I thought it was kind of an embarrassing topic to talk about. But actually, I talk about it all of the time. It's one of the things I talk mostly about with my clients. Like, are you having fun? Fun. And if the answer is no, I'm like, why? Let's work on that first. So that's what I'm going to leave you with tonight. Thank you so much for listening to the Soma Flow podcast. My name is Tabitha MacDonald, and I hope to see you again. Hope this did not scare you off, and I hope it got you thinking a little bit about what you might be missing out on. Have a great night. Bye.